Anna was excited. She had finally moved into her first apartment. It was a cozy little place, nestled in a quiet suburban neighborhood. The walls were painted a soft cream and sunlight streamed in through the windows. It felt like a fresh start, a chance to create a life of her own. Anna spent the day unpacking boxes, her heart filled with hope and anticipation. As the day wore on, she started to feel a little lonely. Her apartment was small and the silence was deafening. She wished she had someone to share this moment with, someone to help her arrange the furniture and hang pictures on the walls. She decided to explore the neighborhood tomorrow. Maybe she could find a friendly face at the local coffee shop. Anna plugged in her bedside lamp, its warm glow chasing away the shadows. She snuggled into her bed, the soft sheets comforting against her skin. She closed her eyes, picturing all the possibilities that lay ahead. Just as sleep was about to claim her, she heard a soft creak. It seemed to come from the living room. Anna's eyes flew open, her heart pounding in her chest. The next morning, Anna decided to investigate the source of the noise. She remembered her landlady mentioning something about an old mirror left by the previous tenant. It was an ornate piece with a twisted, almost sinister-looking frame. The mirror itself was large and rectangular, its surface slightly tarnished with age. It leaned against the wall in the living room as if waiting to be hung. Anna was drawn to it. There was something both alluring and unsettling about its presence. She ran her fingers along the cold, smooth surface of the glass. Her reflection stared back at her, an exact replica of herself. She couldn't explain it, but she felt a strange connection to the antique mirror. She decided to incorporate the mirror into her decor. She carefully moved the mirror, propping it up against the wall opposite her bed. The mirror seemed to dominate the room, its presence impossible to ignore. Anna couldn't help but feel like she was being watched, even when she was alone in the apartment. As the days passed, Anna found herself spending more and more time staring at her reflection in the mirror. She would sit on the floor, her legs crossed, and gaze at her own image. It was as if she was searching for something, a hidden truth or a glimpse into another world. One evening, as Anna was getting ready for bed, she noticed something strange in the mirror. It was a flicker of movement, just a fleeting glimpse, but enough to send a shiver down her spine. She stopped what she was doing and turned to face the mirror directly, her heart racing in her chest. At first, she saw nothing unusual. Her reflection stared back at her, its expression neutral. But then, as she continued to watch, she saw it again. It was a subtle shift, a blurring of the edges, as if her reflection was trying to break free from its confinement. Anna blinked and the movement was gone. She told herself it was just her imagination, a trick of the light. The antique mirror was old, after all, and its surface was far from perfect. But deep down, a seed of unease had been planted in her mind. She tried to shake off the unsettling feeling, but the image of the flickering movement lingered in her mind. It was as if her reflection had a life of its own, a secret existence that was hidden from view. The strange occurrences continued. One morning, Anna woke up to find a single vase smashed on the floor. It was the vase she had placed on the nightstand, directly in front of the mirror. She couldn't understand how it could have fallen. The nightstand was sturdy and there was nothing else around it that could have knocked it over. Then one evening, as Anna was brushing her hair, she could have sworn she saw her reflection wink at her. She froze, her brush midway through her hair. She stared at her reflection, her eyes wide with disbelief. Her reflection stared back at her, its expression innocent. Anna slowly lowered the brush, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew what she had seen, but her mind refused to accept it. It was impossible, absurd. Reflections couldn't move on their own, could they? She tried to rationalize it. Perhaps she had imagined it, or maybe it was just a trick of the light. But the more she thought about it, the more convinced she became that something was wrong. Her reflection was acting independently, as if it had a mind of its own. Section 5. The Unseen Observer. As the days turned into nights, the strange occurrences intensified. Anna felt an overwhelming sense of being watched, her every move scrutinized by an unseen observer. She would catch glimpses of movement out of the corner of her eye, shadows shifting in the periphery of her vision. But whenever she turned to look, there was nothing there. She started having nightmares, vivid and terrifying dreams that left her gasping for air. In her dreams, she would see a dark figure standing behind her in the mirror, its eyes glowing with a malevolent light. The figure would reach out towards her, its long, slender fingers closing around her throat, squeezing the life out of her. Anna would wake up in a cold sweat, her heart racing, her mind filled with terror. She knew she had to do something about the mirror, but she was paralyzed by fear. The thought of being alone in the apartment with it, even for a moment, filled her with an overwhelming sense of dread. She started avoiding her own reflection, afraid of what she might see staring back at her. She would keep her eyes fixed on the floor as she walked past the mirror, her body tense with anticipation. Section 6. Trapped. Anna felt trapped, imprisoned in her own home by an unseen entity. She considered moving, finding a new apartment, but she knew deep down that it wouldn't make a difference. The mirror, with its haunting reflection, had latched onto her, its grip tightening with each passing day. One afternoon, as Anna was trying to focus on her work, she heard a soft tapping sound coming from the living room. It was a slow, deliberate tapping, like someone was gently knocking on the surface of the mirror. Anna froze, her blood turning to ice in her veins. She slowly got up from her desk, her legs shaking beneath her. She tiptoed towards the living room, her heart pounding in her chest. As she peered around the corner, she saw it. Her reflection was gone. In its place was a dark, swirling vortex, as if the mirror was a portal to another dimension. Section 7. Desperate measures. Driven to the brink by terror, Anna decided to cover the mirror. She found a thick, heavy blanket in the linen closet and draped it over the ornate frame. The blanket was thick enough to block out any light, shrouding the mirror in darkness. For a brief moment, Anna felt a sense of relief wash over her. The mirror was hidden, its secrets concealed. She could no longer see her reflection, and the feeling of being watched subsided. But it was a short-lived respite. As the night wore on, the sensation of being watched intensified. It was as if the blanket had only served to anger whatever entity was trapped within the mirror. Anna felt a cold presence in the room, a palpable sense of dread that sent shivers down her spine. She lay in bed, her body trembling, her eyes wide open, staring at the covered mirror. The tapping sound returned, louder this time, more insistent. It was as if whatever was trapped behind the blanket was trying to break free. Anna knew she couldn't live like this any longer. She had to do something drastic. She remembered reading somewhere that mirrors were believed to be portals to other realms, and that breaking a mirror could sever the connection. She grabbed her bedside lamp and hurled it at the covered mirror. The lamp shattered on impact, sending shards of glass flying across the room. But the mirror remained intact, the blanket still covering its surface. Anna's heart sank. She had hoped that breaking the mirror would destroy whatever evil was trapped within it. But it seemed to have had no effect. The tapping continued, relentless and maddening. Anna grabbed her phone and dialed 911. But just as she was about to press the call button, the tapping stopped. A deafening silence descended upon the apartment. Anna held her breath, her body frozen in fear. She listened intently, but there was no sound. The silence stretched on, each second an eternity. Then, slowly, the blanket began to move. It started as a subtle ripple, then grew into a violent thrashing. It was as if whatever was trapped beneath the blanket was fighting with all its might to break free. Anna watched in horror as the blanket was slowly pulled away from the mirror. She could see the outline of her reflection through the thick fabric, its form distorted and grotesque. The reflection reached out from the mirror, its long, slender fingers tearing through the blanket as if it were made of paper. Anna screamed and stumbled back, her eyes wide with terror. The blanket fell to the floor, revealing the mirror in all its terrifying glory, but something was different. The mirror was shattered, its surface covered in a network of cracks, and in the center of the shattered glass, staring back at Anna with a look of pure malice, was her reflection. But it wasn't her reflection, it was something else, something evil and sinister. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and its lips were curled into a cruel smile. Anna screamed again, a primal scream of terror and despair. She turned and ran, her bare feet pounding on the hardwood floor. She raced out of the apartment, slamming the door behind her. She didn't stop running until she reached the street. She collapsed on the sidewalk, her chest heaving, her body trembling uncontrollably. She looked back at her apartment building, her eyes searching for any sign of pursuit. But there was nothing. The apartment building stood silent and still in the darkness. Anna knew deep down that she would never be free from the mirror. It had latched onto her, its evil seeping into her very being. She would never be able to escape its gaze, its haunting reflection forever imprinted on her mind. From that day forward, Anna lived in a perpetual state of fear. She avoided all mirrors, terrified of what she might see staring back at her. She moved from apartment to apartment, city to city, but the mirror's curse followed her wherever she went. She was trapped in a nightmare, a prisoner of her own reflection, and she knew that one day the mirror would claim her, dragging her down into its depths where she would be lost forever.